there were 100 others where this guy didn't make it. They came home with these all shot up.
Thank you very much for coming out to our 40th anniversary of the Nanton Lancaster Society, now called the Bomber Command Museum of Canada. It is not a small town museum.
The enormous efforts of the Lancaster Society over the last 40 years. From day one, when they committed to bringing this bird across the prairies to our little town, and ultimately to what you see today and in this museum, and all of their future plans. These guys, their brains never stop working. Nothing is endless, everything is possible, and we are so, so fortunate for all of the work that they've done to share the stories of Bomber Command over the years and to really commit to the legacy of those who served. So thank you again for coming out today. We really appreciate you coming to it. And this bird, follow their website, follow their social media for when you can start up. Come during the day, but stay for the night as well, because it's incredible to see it at night. So thank you again and enjoy the afternoon.
I want to talk about 40 years and what that means. But in order to talk about the 40 years, I have to talk about what happened before the 40 years. The Lanc came to Nanton in the early 60s. It was the brainchild of three individuals, George, Fred, and Howie, and they decided that Nanton needed something different, something that might attract people. I don't think that they knew just exactly what they were developing, and it would take almost 30 years to become to fruition. The society was formed in 1986, and we are officially the Nanton Lancaster Society, who operates the Bomber Command Museum of Canada. The society was started to take care of this aircraft that was beginning to languish. It was showing its age, it was showing the weather. Being on the side of the road, you can imagine what would happen with souvenir hunters. Oh, look, here's an airplane. Let me go take a piece of it. Later, as we started developing the society, we actually saw some of those pieces come back to us. We had a seat that was mailed to us, no return address. But they had said, I removed this from the aircraft some years earlier. Now that I see what you're doing with the aircraft, I want you to have it back. So we were at risk of losing the aircraft. Not because somebody was going to sell it, but it was just going to deteriorate. It was not going to exist anymore. And if it disappeared, that means that future memories of 6-year-olds would not exist anymore. I have seen this museum go from people who came and said, I used to sit up there in that seat, I want to sit in that seat again, to people coming to the museum saying, my dad used to fly in these things, I want to sit where he sat. And now we're getting my grandpa, my great-grandpa. In fact, this earlier today, I just heard someone say, my granddad died in one of these. There is 10,800 names on the wall that otherwise would have been forgotten. The society in its 40 years has existed to maintain, to train, to teach, to convey. And those memories feed some young folks for our museum this summer. And I discussed with them, what do you learn in school about World War II? What do you learn about the Canadian contribution? And their answer was, not much. So it is up to organizations like ours to be able to convey those messages. Some came home, some didn't. Our freedom, though, today is thanks to those, both who came home and those who did not. So 40 years has been spent remembering And going forward, we're hoping to spend the next 40 years doing the same thing. I'd now like to call upon Dan, if you'd like to present a little bit about, he's got some memories.
Some of my memories of volunteering here, of being president of this wonderful organization for 19 years and then vice president for another 1,000. Anyway, it's been a very, very interesting way to spend your retirement. And even before my retirement, I was up to my neck in this place. So I'll just read you a few of the recollections that I had. My history with the Nanton Lancaster Society started in 1986 when I was a member of town council. And we were looking for someone to take care of the poor old Lancaster. She had suffered from years of neglect. And we had all sorts of people try to save her over the years, but it was a losing cause because she was still sitting outside. And I remember we had volunteers come from as far away as Ontario. We had a family, mom and dad and their younger son, who spent their 2-week holiday out here in Nanton, stayed in a motel, and at the end of their 2 weeks would donate money to us. They were wonderful volunteers. They fixed all the perspex in the Lancaster cockpit. One funny little story, Louise, the mom, she was helping clean out bird nests and so on out of the bomb bay doors in the lane. There was a little access hole. She had her arm stuck in there, pulling out bird nests and so on. And she reached in farther and she grabbed something. Oh, what is this? She pulled it out. It was a girl's bra. I'll let you fill in what you think happened to get that bra in there. Anyway, yes, we've had some funny stories and we've had some not so funny stories. We've had many, many volunteers over the years that we have lost, through disease, old age, whatever. But they contributed what they could over the years to help us out. This story is 40 years of history. The Lank looks inside and out like she did in 1945 when she flew to England at the end of the war. She never got to take part in the war because she got there a little late, which is probably a good thing because it's still in one piece. The empty field that surrounded her is now covered with a 37,000 square foot building renamed the Bomber Command Museum of Canada. It houses hundreds of artifacts and over 14 different aircraft from World War II. 4 of these are fully taxiable, including the Lank, with more in the works, like a Harvard down there. Our North Hangar has a steady stream of volunteers working on a variety of projects, including a Mosquito, an Avroanson, a Spitfire, a Halifax, a Harvard, etc. I think we are one of the most busy air museums in Canada when it comes to working on different projects. As impressive as these accomplishments are, they are not the primary reason we are remembering today. The people we are honoring here are those who served in Bomber Command and the BCATP. Over half did not come home, and they lie in graves all over Europe. Because of our commitment to keeping their memories alive, we have literally met thousands of relatives and visitors alike who appreciate what we do here and have become good friends. I have had the good fortune to visit air museums and air shows in Arnhem, Holland, honoring my cousin who died in Lanc as a navigator. The people there never forget the sacrifices our boys made. That's why we must continue doing our best to carry on what we started 40 years ago. Hopefully, the next generation will carry the torch that we passed to them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, folks, and thank you very much for coming out to our 40th anniversary of the Nanton Lancaster Society, now called the Bomber Command Museum of Canada. It is not a small town museum, it is a national memorial. No one anywhere in Canada has ever put up a black granite wall with all 10,800 names of the Canadians killed in action. The smartest move I ever made was moving from Ottawa to Nanton, Alberta 20 years ago. That's how good these guys are. I'm a warbird nut. I'm an airline pilot for 37 years. When I saw these guys in action over the many years that I used to come and go here, I said, these guys are good. There are other museums around the country, they haven't got our all-star volunteers and people. This is it. This is the people's choice in all of Canada for this museum. Now, I got a little survey, so you're going to have to humor me. Okay, I want to know who was 11 years old in 1961 and visited the Lancaster and then came back 50 years, 60 years later to be part of Nanton. And who, this is included in there, who got their twin engine rating from a dam buster pilot from the dam buster raid? Raise your hand. I'm just saying, I know a guy. So the whole point being is I was here and I was a warbird nut. And that was 1961, just after she came here. And then later on, when I found out how good these guys are, I said, I want to be part of that team. So as I retired from the airlines, I came here. And now you know we're trying to get a Halifax bomber also, because it's important just like the Lancaster. But what I wanted to say is the sacrifice was so great. Those young bomber boys, they flew in the Lancaster or the Halifax. You guys have your freedom because of those 21 and 22-year-olds that sacrificed for you. Freedom is not free. How do I put this? Some swords of freedom are made from aluminium. Remember that. Remember, we're trying to build another huge hangar called Home for the Heavies so that we can put the Lancaster and the Halifax together. We got $1.5 million. Anyways, we need $6 million more. And we're going gangbusters. We're going to get it. So for the next 40 years, this becomes our future. So hang with us. We're performing magic here. We're converting the impossible into the difficult. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you for coming out.
There is a couple of folks from the Canadian Aviation Historical Society, the Medicine Hat chapter.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Much appreciated. I represent the Lost 48, the Medicine Hat chapter of the Canadian Aviation Historical Society. We started in about 2017, formed a chapter, and we've been growing ever since. One of our primary goals is to support local, regional, provincial, and national aviation initiatives. Nanton Bomber Command and the Calgary Mosquito Society are two of our favorite targets. Not
Targets, that's a perfect word. We'll go for that.
So we got a little thing here, CHS Medicine Hat, and a presentation of a check in support of what you guys have been doing and to carry on doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. We will continue our route.
I want to tell you a little story before we get started here about this guy, Sergeant Nicholas Alkemade, 21 years old. He was the rear gunner in Lancaster. Nicholas Alkemade, young tail gunner, flying over the Black Forest of Germany on the way to Berlin to bomb Berlin, and they got attacked by a night fighter. And they didn't have any warning. He came from the side. He shot holes through the side of the aircraft. It caught the hoses that are filled with hydraulic oil, caught them on fire, and the back end of the aircraft was aflame. So the pilot immediately ordered everybody out. He knew the aircraft was doomed, it was going to go down. He said, bail out, bail out. So Nicholas opened the little doors behind him and reached back to get his parachute, which is stored in the fuselage, because there's no room for you and the parachute. And when he reached back, he burned his hands. His parachute was on fire. So he decided very quickly, I would rather die bailing out of the aircraft into the night sky than burn to death. He turned the turret sideways, opened the little doors, bailed out backwards into the night sky from 18,000 feet, and survived. And you might say, how did that happen? Well, he fell through that night sky, reaching terminal velocity, and he was lucky enough, they were over the Black Forest. He landed in a big fir tree, broke branches on the way down, and landed in snow. It was March 1944. Landed in that much snow on his back. Hurt his ankle, hurt his back, nothing broken, but it knocked him out. So he was laying there for a couple of hours, they figured, and then he woke up to the sound of dogs and human voices. And he looked up, and here were soldiers with rifles pointed at him. What's his loss? What are you doing here? And he said, I bailed out of that Lancaster that you shot down. You lie. Where is your parachute? He said, I jumped without one. No, nobody could survive that. You must be a spy. We are taking you to headquarters, and you will be shot. So they loaded him up, took him to headquarters. Luckily for him, a couple of his crewmates had also been captured. They had parachuted out, and they verified, yeah, that's Nicholas, our tail gunner. So it was a verified story. Later on, the Germans searched the remains of the Lancaster and found his burnt parachute. So that went down as a verified story. Now, for every story like that of survival, there were 100 others where this guy didn't make it. They came home with these all shot up and sometimes took a fire hose to it and then replaced it. So it was a very dangerous time, but we have to remember these young fellows were all volunteers. They all gave their lives willingly for us. So we owe them a debt of gratitude. This is Doug, my rear turret demo guy. He's going to run this turret for us. And I'll tell you right now, this is the only runnable tail turret, Lancaster tail turret that we know of in the world. There are tail turrets mounted on Lancs and so on, but they don't run. This one, a crew in Calgary spent 2.5 years in a hydraulic shop restoring this. It was in pretty rough shape when we got it, and that no perspex in it, no controls, no nothing. So they spent 2.5 years, got it all restored. We mounted it on this replica piece of Lancaster that was made for a movie set back in 1991. Okay, this turret was used primarily on Lancasters. The Halifax bomber, which was the same size, and which we are attempting to build a complete Halifax in our north shop and in Arnprior, Ontario. It had a slightly different turret. This one was armed with 4 303 Browning machine guns, capable of firing 1,100 rounds per minute each. So that's a lot of lead flying through the air at once. But you needed that amount of lead flying through the air because it was only 303 ammunition, that size. Rifle ammunition. Yes, you could shoot down an enemy night fighter, a Ju-88 or an Me-110, if you put enough of these into the fuselage or you killed the pilot or whatever. Most of the time, this young fellow, and most of them are young and very scared, of course, this is the most dangerous place to be in a Lancaster in World War II. You're flying at night, you're flying at 20,000 feet, it's minus 40 most of the time. You're wearing an electric heated suit that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. You had 3 pairs of gloves on, you had sheepskin lined boots and sheepskin lined pants and coat, and you had to sit there for up to 8 hours. The Germans, on the other hand, had a slight advantage because they had radar. They could pick out a singular Lancaster out of the bomber stream heading to the target, and they would lock onto him and sneak up behind him. And if this guy didn't notice him, he could either just shoot him and take him out, and then go underneath the Lanc and shoot up into the 3 gas tanks in either wing with incendiary ammunition. And they were using 20 millimeter cannon fire. That size. 20 millimeter cannon would blow this turret right apart. And with incendiaries in the nose or the end of the bullet, it would explode in the gas tanks and start a fire immediately, or quite simply blow the whole aircraft up, which happened quite often. That's why the odds of surviving 30 ops, which you had to do before you got a rest, the odds of surviving that were less than 50%. So all these young guys, if they made it back at the breakfast table the next morning, there were crews missing. And some of them were lucky enough to bail out, parachute out, save themselves, and then be picked up either by the French or Dutch underground and hidden, or more likely, they were picked up by the Germans and taken off to a POW camp, where they spent the rest of the war.
Halifax 57 Rescue. We've got a great story for you here. This is Gearhead Heaven 28, and we have good news for you. And I'll explain it all. So off we go in the weeks ahead.